How's it going, guys? Winner Kills here, and welcome to a brand new Locals feature match. Here we are in the fourth and final round from June 10th's Locals, and we've got Branded Despia on the left versus Mathmech on the right. Same Mathmech player we had on, I think, in previous rounds. So yeah, let's hop right in. We're going to see the Branded deck go first. They start with Albert, and they're going to get hit with an Imperm. I think that's fair to say, if you have Imperm against the Branded deck, and that's really all you have. I don't think you can go wrong with Imperm Albert, because if they already have Branded Fusion, right, then they already have it. But at least you stop them from getting access to Branded Lost with Branded Fusion, which is going to generate them so much more advantage on their turn and also your turn. And if they're playing the Gimmick Puppet Lock, it just makes, Branded Lost just makes everything way more difficult to deal with. And they've also opened up Talents and Thrust in the opening hand here. And I think Nadir Servant. So they were well prepared for Ash on Branded Fusion, like overly prepared for Ash on Branded Fusion, about as prepared as you could possibly be. And that Albion is going to get sent off for the Bestial Rebellion. That's going to place the Branded Lost, and then they're going to slap down that Nadir Servant. Go ahead and send something from the extra deck to the grave, and then either add, I think, Fallen of Albaz or a Dogmatica. And I imagine we'll see them. Yeah, okay, so we're going to send Titiniclad. I guess you don't need another Albion in the grave. And we'll see them search out a copy of Albaz. And End Phase, I imagine, will roll down soon. They'll get the effect of Albion and Titiniclad. And they'll summon out Quem, which is treated as a Dogmatica. So Titiniclad can go ahead and special summon that, and then we're going to see the Quem dump an Albaz, and then the Albion is going to set Brandon in red. So they have Mirror Jade plus Brandon in red, plus the Quem being able to revive the Albaz. So quite a few bit of interruptions there, and they also have the Branded Loss, of course, to make things more difficult. Can't respond in the summon window. Your effects, the activation of your effects that let you fuse and summon cannot be negated. But of course, you can still negate the effects, just not the activations, right? That's why you can still Ash under, Branded Lost. But we're gonna see the Mathmech player lead here with Sign Up Mining, discarding Sigma. Pretty decent start there. That's gonna get them access to not Circular, but for Diameter, which I guess you could probably put two and two together. They've already hard opened Circular at 1, by the way. Always will always shock me anytime a Mathmech player opens up Circular. Hard draws the one of, and then it almost just becomes at that point like, the card never went to 1. Like, it's still at 3. But they're gonna normal summon Diameter here to bring back the Sigma, and this is kind of a safer route here. So we'll get them access to Engine, and it'll get them an Omni Negate to start playing into the board here. Right, if they overlay for Alan Burchin, right, they'll have that Diameter underneath it, and it'll get an access to Omni Negate. So that's going to force the Mirror Jade right now. Mirror Jade will dump the Rinbrum, and that's going to go ahead and banish the Sigma, so that'll get rid of a potential extender later. But they do have the addition, so that'll be able to special summon itself out to the board. And they still, again, have access to another rank 4 play with a Omni Negate available to them. And so it looks like on that summon, they're going to activate Rinbrum Engrave, banishing itself, bringing out Albaz. Albaz effect, discarding that Thrust that they never needed to use the last turn. And they're going to Fusion for Albion. And they're going to be Chainlink 1, Albion, Chainlink 2, Lost. So Lost will go ahead and grab Mercurier. So that's another interruption set up during their turn, and Albion can go ahead and Fusion summon here. Probably a whole host of different things they could go for here, like Dragostapelia. You could also probably go for Quartus, I want to say, but I don't think Quartus would probably be that great. So we'll see what they decide to end up Fusion summoning with. Looks like they're going to use... Okay, so they're going to go for Proskinian, which is not a card I necessarily would have thought they would have gone for, because it's been so long since I've seen anybody summon Proskinian, or even let alone play that card in a branded deck. But yeah, 1 Despia monster plus a light and a dark. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target a fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, or special summon it to your field. And when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack or defense, whichever is higher. So it can just quick effect steal something, fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link out of the opponent's graveyard and banish it or special summon it. It's also 32, so it is a pretty huge monster on board there. Yeah, so I guess that could potentially stop them from a link climb. So if you think about them going for like what, Splash Mage, and then Splash Mage into like Transcode, and then Transcode effect to bring back like a Splash Mage or something, they could just chain the Proskenian to bring back out that Splash Mage, and then that stops the link climb right there. So because you know that's one of the scariest things about Mathmech is that link climb into things like Terahertz or Access Code, which they can make multiple in a turn, which is kind of crazy. So we're gonna see that game 1 wrap up there. The Mathmech deck will lose to the branded deck, and we're gonna see them start off in game 2 here with Cynet pitching the multiplication. Also, reminder, guys, again, check out Imperium Duelist at the link below. Support the channel, and yeah, you see Cynet mining, you gotta go ahead and ash it. That's just basic law nowadays. Like you gotta put them on have circular or have something just as good, as an equivalent, and they do. They have the diameter here. But at least they can't get the whole setup now, right? I mean, I guess at this point they can, just because they hard drew diameter. So I guess, yeah, that's a little unfortunate because now they'll be able to get super factorial and they'll have the diameter set up engraved, which is exactly what you don't want them to have. Usually if they do just, sign it for circular, and then you ash like the circular, it'll cut them off of like the super factorial, which they could search off of the Alimbertian, but if they don't have diameter in the rotation, it makes the super factorial a lot less threatening. And yeah, I mean, if they have 3 names engraved, they still have 3 names engraved, right? It's the send, but at least it doesn't get an Omni Negate stacked on top of it, which is like, again, the biggest issue at the end of the day. It's like a send 3 plus an Omni Negate, right? So a send 3 sometimes, and it's not always even a send 3, especially if you're not playing like a back row deck. You're never really losing a spell and trap card to it. It's usually just something on a monster on board and then like a random card in the hand. So it's really only a send 2. But yeah, if you can make it just a send 2 and not an Omni Negate, right, obviously much better. So they're going to link off for the Cyberse Wicked. And then we're going to use Alimbertian effect to bring out the circular. And then Wicked effect to go ahead and add a Cyberse Tuner. That's going to go ahead and grab a copy of Diameter for follow-up. There also will be a Mathmech deck profile going up on the channel for my friend here on the right, Alex. So that should be up. That should have been up like a while ago. But yeah, I've just been kind of messing up my upload schedule lately, and I apologize for that. It's been very hectic past couple of weeks, preparing for other projects and, preparing for regional and all this stuff, things get in the way, and I do apologize. So we're going to see them go for the Decode Talker Heat Soul, and they're going to chain Heat Soul in response to Parallel Exceed. Yeah, I think that's how that is, that chain link there is. Or no, they're just going to summon. It looked like for a second they were using the effect on summon. But yeah, they're just going to let the Parallel Exceed resolve, let the on summon effect resolve, right? And then draw a card once you've gotten the Parallel Exceeds out of the deck. Which I imagine they probably play 3, so like drawing one wouldn't have like made the Parallel dead. But now they're going to go into Splash Mage here and activate Splash Mage to bring back out the Mathmech Circular. And we know they are playing Multiplication, and I believe they're also playing the Final Sigma in the extra deck. So multiple OTK buttons in the extra deck. Now going into Transcode. Transcode effect, bring back the Splash Mage. Activate Addition. And then we're going to see them link 5 into Firewall, Dragon, Dark Fluid, Neo, Tempest, Terahertz, or something. That's got the world's like longest name. And that's going to dump the D-Save Worm, which basically just gives... gives them a spell trap negate, essentially, because I think if you control a Link 5 or higher Cyberse, it's just you can banish it to negate a spell or trap, and it gives it an additional attribute. So it's, I believe, now both a light and a dark monster. And yeah, they're going to go ahead and set 1, set 2, one of which we know to be the super factorial. So they have quite a bit going for them here. They have the Terahertz, which is just a threat in its own, right? It's game next turn on its own, no effects in the battle phase. They've gotten 2 draws now off of that Decode Talker Heat Soul. They have Super Factorial, and if they have Ash in hand on top of that's even better. But they do have Imperm for Alibert, which now puts them on the spot. You know, do you have the Branded Fusion in hand already? Well, they do have Thrust, which might as well be, you know, might as well just be Branded Fusion. Now, they could negate the Thrust there with the Terahertz, but you're probably just better off letting that resolve and see what they get, and then negate whatever they get off that, because it can only get a spell or trap, and it can be added to the hand now since the opponent does control a monster. And they did play into the Thrust, unfortunately, by having to activate the Heat Soul on their turn, but I mean, like, it's a give and take, right? You gotta go for the draw anyways. So they will activate Branded Fusion, and the Terahertz, well, the D-Save Worm will be able to negate that, and that's gonna basically win them the game right then and there on the spot. Looks like double cross out, Designator, Branded Lost, Albion, and I want to say that's Mercurier in the hand for our Branded player there. Very awkward looking opening hand. They do grab Magnamut off the Bestial Lebellion, and I'm not really sure what else they can do with that hand. That's a very, very rough hand. So they're just going to set Mercurier, set Crossout Designator, and just pray that they don't get OTK'd, but they're probably going to get OTK'd since that Crossout Designator isn't really going to do anything there. And also, one thing I want to talk about, like, Thrust. Like, that card is so crazy, and I think it just, like, messes up, like, what you can do on future Forbidden and Limited lists in terms of, like, powerful spells and traps. Like we saw, for example, with a Pointer of the Red Lotus. That card was at 1, but had to get banned because it's still at 4 with, you know, 3 copies of a Pointer. Same thing with Branded Fusion now. Yo, you interrupted me at any point, like, I get Branded Fusion or, like, Pot of Prosperity. I know some people thought about this card getting hit, which I do think is something that should happen in the future, but, like, now you're thinking about, like, okay, I got Ash somewhere, now I can go ahead and Thrust for Prosperity and dig 6 cards deep. Like, 1 ofs now become 4 ofs with generic, you know, searcher cards like that. Yes, of course, you do have to play into cards like that, but at the same time, sometimes it's unavoidable, right, in some situations, because you just choose not to use monster effects, and then you're literally just, your board becomes tokens, your hand traps are used, like, you know what I mean? Like, of course, Thrust isn't as good as the card itself sometimes, but there is a decent chunk of the time where it still just is as good as the card, you know, it would be grabbing. For example, like Board Breakers, like grabbing Evenly Matched, grabbing Dark Ruler No More, Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, Change of Heart, right? Change of Heart and, you know, Harpy's Feather Duster might as well not even be at the numbers that they're at, because then we have cards created like Thrust. It's like Terraforming, for example. Any deck that has a field spell now has 5 or 4 copies of that field spell because of the Terraforming. Or they have, you know, even more if they can play something like Set Rotation, right? But even more on top of that because of Thrust. So, like, it's just, I don't know how I feel about that card. It's in a very weird spot, and, like, I'm also just, like, kind of sick of, like, getting hit with triple tactic cards lately. They're so good when they're good, and obviously they can be bad when they're bad, but, like, man, oh man, is that difference in power level. Like, when they're good, they're insane, and when they're bad, but, like, man, it's just pretty nuts. I don't know. That was a little bit of a tangent there. I apologize. So we're going to see Mathmech go for a turn 1 Laplacian. They're going to get to send a spell trap, send a monster, and 1 from hand. So they get the whole 9 yards here. And they've got the Omni Negate underneath it. So they've opened up a ton of extenders here. They've all been really cracked here in Game 3. And the opponent is going to chain Crossout Designator in response to the effect of the Laplacian. And yeah, they're not going to negate that. They're just going to let this go through. And I really don't know exactly what they could call here with Crossout Designator. It's not like they play. Yeah, there's really, I don't even, like, it's not like there's like a Parallel Exceed in their deck they can banish. So they're just going to call Thrust. Yeah, they're just going to call Thrust. And I'm pretty sure Thrust is not even in their deck list. But I mean, you got to use it, right? It's use it or lose it. They're going to hit Magnamut to Mercurier, and I think that was another cross out in the hand. And this is definitely game. 2 monsters is just game. So they're going to link for multiplication for Lingeribo, and they have the Parallel Exceed in hand. Yeah, I mean, like, cross out for Parallel Exceed would have gone crazy, but why would Parallel Exceed be in their deck? But yeah, that's going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Last but not least, a big shout out goes to our current Divine Level channel members who are Misfit, HC8 Cyber, Cadillacs, Pony Stark, and Green. Thank you guys so much for your extremely kind and very generous support of the channel.